Sure. So yeah, this is at least one of those archetypes when I could see the deck before I started making the archetype, and even more so, I could see two decks, and I think that both of them are quite non-overlapping, which is great because
Okay.
it means that I think that Witherbloom will be open for multiple drafts per pod. So yeah, there is the live game team and there's the sacrifice team, and they don't necessarily have to work together with each other. So I think that you either want to focus on live gain and live gain payoff, or you want to focus on sacrifice and sacrifice payoff. There are some important cards that you'll be fighting over, but if you want to build a good deck, I think that having a bit of life gain and a bit of sacrifice theme is not going to be a great strategy. So at least from the initial view of this thing. So now I have to read your slide, isn't it?
No,
I
no,
should
you
have done
don't.
it.
I mean, you can. I think you hit most of the points here, right? Pest enable both,
Yeah,
which is
I
a
mean,
good thing.
I think pests are great because pests are a great way of enabling sacrifice with some minor effects and at low cost. And you can really go wide in this deck. I think that this is a deck that will be able to get 12 creatures on board if you play your things right.
Right, if you sack a 7/6 and make 7/1/1s out of it.
Exactly.
Haha, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you already did it. Yeah, so I mean, this is weirdly the set where I'm actually most keen on the Magecraft triggers. I think that there's a couple of cards that have really good Magecraft abilities, and Witherbloom Apprentice is one. I think that what you miss in this side is the 3 mana 2/2, this sort of Spellgorger weird for life game.
Right.
I think that this card can go nuts, literally nuts. This deck when
Yeah.
you generate some pets and when you have some ways of sacrificing them, this can become menacing 6/6 very quickly. And if they don't have hard removal,
Right.
this is going to be unstoppable. I think this is like a key card for the live game version of the
We'll
deck.
highlight this card later on, Pawel. Don't worry.
But all the other, even like Witherbloom Pledge Match is a decent thing because it triggers your life gain, which in turn will trigger all your life gain payoffs, and with some cards it will get you more life. And so this is a one when I can really see the synergy going on, which means that probably it's going to be also the most obvious archetype, and people will be on it quite early. So I think that this one is going to be tricky to get into in the first days, or it's going to be completely open because the noobs are going to, hey Icky, because people that didn't consume any content and just try to draft things are not going to be on it early. So maybe this is the money maker for the first couple of days.
Yeah. Wanna pick up one of your archetype skeletons, Sierko?
I would love to, yes.
Which one do
Is
you?
that one of mine?
Yeah, let's start with the live game one, and I'll open the sacrifice one already.
Yeah, I'll open it in the separate so I can actually see it because with my glasses I'm just
Right.
half blind.
We're looking at your live
Live
game
game.
one right now. Yeah.
Okay, the live game. So let's start from.
There's a typo in the Mage Hunter, so I thought it looks like.
Oh yeah,
Well,
maybe.
get over that. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I hide the sideboard, but sideboard is important. You just want your pests to be there, basically.
Yeah, this is an insanely important part in it.
Yeah, I think that this is the only reason why you want to learn really in that particular archetype, and that's why I have 2 hands for specimens, which are the key card I think for the archetype generally. This is
Yep.
the thing that creates the pest and learns. So basically, turn 2 into turn 3 pests, you start with 3 pests on board,
Yep.
which are great way of clogging the board and setting you up for your life gain triggers. I basically, from other creatures, I put the Leech Fanatics, which have lifelink on your turn, so when you attack, you can get your triggers for life gain. As a defense, I think that this card is going to be really strong. I put the Overgrown Arc, so the 4 wall that taps for gaining 1 life. And you can, in late game when you don't need it or when you need something to learn something, you can tap it to learn, which is a great ability. So
Yeah, definitely.
Reverse Wall of Blossoms, let's put it like that. Dina is a great payoff because whenever you gain life, you drain opponent for 1, and if you have those really small triggers that gain 1 life each, you can really accumulate a number of triggers that will make it a significant chunk of the damage you deal is going to be through Dina. Like when you think about it, Overgrown Arch into Dina, you can instantly tap it to gain 1 life, you drain someone for 1, and you have a decent board presence that will be defensive against the 3/2s because the Arch blocks all the 3/2s. And Dina later can also threaten lethal quite well. So again, the Witherbloom Apprentice, I think it's not going to be impressive because you don't have that many spells. But if you can trigger it a couple of times, it triggers the abilities quite well, and it does exactly what you want. You drain an opponent, you gain 1 life. With Dina, you drain them again, so it quickly becomes this kind of chain reaction. And all of those cards chain well. Like look at the Honor Troll, which makes all your life gains +1. So basically, every single time you gain 1 life, you will gain 2 life instead. Every time you gain 2 life, you gain 3 instead. And if you gain enough life, it becomes also a 4/4 with Vigilance, which is a great stat line for, I think, this format. So it's a prime uncommon for this. And I think if I opened it, I would try to go along the lines of the life gate deck. I put the 2/4 vanilla because I think I don't think I want it in this deck, but I think I wanted to highlight maybe that this card is, I don't think it's bad. It blocks well. It stops some part of decks from attacking, especially against white-red. The 2/4 really pairs well with their stat line, so they really need to use some trick on it to kill it, and it kills their stat. Unlike the 1/4, which only chumps, this one can actually remove a lot of attacking creatures and survive unless they do something with it. And Blood Researcher is the key common. I think it's the most important common for this deck because this is what Spellgorger Weir was for the red-blue spell decks whenever it was in any format. It's basically this thing that if they don't kill it early, and there's not so many ways of killing it early, this thing can run away with the game because you can easily get 3/4 blind game triggers, and in a good turn, if you have the ability, if you have some pests to chump block and things like that. So the fact that it has menace, unlike the Spellgorger Weir, also means that you can't just indefinitely chump it. You really will very quickly run out of answers. So it's a good attrition tool at the same time.
Quick question, Pawel.
I think,
Quick question.
yeah.
So there's a Honor Troll and a Blood Researcher in the back. What are we taking here?
Honor Troll.
Okay, interesting.
Well, first of all, it's an uncommon. The other one is a common, so I have a better chance of getting that effect later. And second of all, it's a 2-color card. And I know this Honor Troll could as well be black-green, but it's not. And people will still pick a green card and put it in their Quandrix deck for some reason, because I don't know, they have the lesson that gets them a land and gains life, and they think that it's a cool interaction or something. I think it should be almost exclusively played in the black-green, but I think that the chance of that wheeling is smaller than the chance of Blood Researcher wheeling.
Okay, let me phrase my question differently. Which of those two is a stronger card?
I still think Honor Troll.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's fine. Continue.
It is a unique effect, and it can make your deck work much better, while Blood Researcher is just going to be the reflection of how good your deck is. If that distinction is clear.
Right, but if this is your deck, this card is insane. While this card is still a 4/4.
It's a 4/4 that makes your life total almost unassailable.
Right, it makes it 50.
Trigger life gains 2 life, and they will never be able to kill you.
That is true. Okay, interesting.
Then I have the Professor of Zoomancy, which is just a rate creature, but it also generates pests, which will generate some life in the end. And I think that at the rate on that card is just great. I think it's maybe not as good as the Style of Sparkmate, but it's not far off in terms of power in this format. I think it's going to be an exceptional card, and that's why I put 2 of them. And the last creature is the Witherbloom Pledge Mage, because I think it just plays well with the cards that you have in your deck, and it's a good top end.
It's a fine top end.
5 mana, 5/5, always good.
Right, especially if it's an elf. This one is a 3-folk warlock. We'll look over.
3-folk synergies are underappreciated.
That's true. That's true. Especially if you have 3, right?
Maybe for the lack of them. And because you didn't put rares in your exactly. You didn't put rares in your skeletons. I put the Valentine, the Dean of the Vein. I think that this card is really good in this deck.
Yeah,
because
very good.
Because of its green part, basically. I mean, if you have multiple triggers, the green part is the way that you win the game, because you pump all your pests very rapidly and they just become overwhelmed very quickly. Now, apart from that, I put some removal. I put the Mortality Spear because it looks pretty good. I put the Eliminate out of the Mythical Archive because I think that's a good rate removal spell.
Yeah,
one cute thing that I put was Fortifying Draught, which I think is the out of nowhere kill spell in this deck on occasions, which basically means you gain 2 life and then target creature gets +X/+X, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. And I put it in a sort of mini combo that I would like to signal existence of with Weather the Storm. And I can, imagine like playing one spell, another spell, playing Fortifying Draught, and in response to Fortifying Draught, playing Weather the Storm and gaining how much life would I do in that time? 9, 10, 12, and then 20 someone out of nowhere. Even if you do it with the one spell, Fortifying Draught and Weather the Storm in response, you hit them for 13 or something, which is quite cute. And also you get all the triggers from Magecraft that might be on board for the copies of Weather the Storm. I think that this card is going to be the best Storm card in Limited by far, and I think it's not going to happen often that you're going to get it, but it's going to happen more often than you think because of how the Mystical Archive is built.
That's probably also the reason why you have Cram Session in, right? Because how do you feel about this card if there's not something like Weather Storm here? Like, do you think it's still playable?
I think it's more playable than you would think, but I would never play it early. It's not my turn 2 play. It's my turn 7 play when I want to learn and get something and trigger 3 Magecraft triggers at the same time, plus a trigger from life gain from something else. So basically, I think that the card on rate is way too weak. But if the deck is built correctly, you will have also 4 or 5 ways of getting extra value from it, which will push it across the border in the deck. And you need some learn, and there's not so much learn that you can put in this deck. I only had the Hunt for Specimens ready.
Yeah, it's basically right.
Yeah, and I mean, if I want to play it late, I also want to pair it with some kind of lesson that maybe is better in the late game, like maybe the thing that exiles the creature of the opponent, or maybe something that the one that draws a card and scries, because that's you want maybe later in the game. Although as an astute eye might notice, I did not put any of those in my sideboard, but I think that they will be quite easy to get because of the lesson slot.
I like the fact that you have environmental sciences here due to the you gain 2 life, which is cute.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That it's good because you play the Hunt for Specimens on turn 2. Maybe you don't have a 4th land, you can go for the environmental sciences, play it and get a land, and then if you do it later, and this is the last lesson that you have in your sideboard, you can just gain 2 life and trigger a couple of triggers.
Yeah, like it. Okay. Anything else you want to add, or do you want to go to the other version of Witherbloom?
I would like to go to the sacrifice version. Yeah, unless there are some questions.
I don't see any in chat for now, so I think we're.
Then we're good.
Wanna talk about these 2 first, because I think they're. This is the rare even. I like to highlight the green uncommon as well. we can talk about that later.
Yeah, no, I just thought that this deck has this particular variant of the skeleton has those couple of very essential creatures, so I would like to have this basic conjuration as my sideboard option. Because I really, in this deck, I really want to go draw one of the massive green-black creatures, the Demagogue Titan and Demagogue Woe Eater, at some stage of the game. And I think that basic conjuration is a good way of digging for them, so that I can have them on turn 5 or something.
Yeah.
And I think Necrotic Fumes is just, again, I wanted to highlight that this is a decent card, especially when you have lots of fodder to sacrifice, so that the cost of exiling a creature I control is not so terrible.
Yeah.
But
and
this is a different, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so we don't have a picture of it here, but the green uncommon is basically like a Broken Wings variant, right? And what I like about that one is that it's a sideboard card in itself, so making that one a lesson, I think, was a great thing to do, right? Because it allows you to...
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, that was a great.
So I really
it
like
also
that one.
makes it passive, the artifact with
something
2 or less.
we can look it up. It might be in one of the other skeletons.
Yeah, that would be also great. I mean, it's just the point I didn't want to be cheeky and putting all the good lessons because
I like to mention that one is actually very good.
Mm-hmm. So, but basically, this is a completely different version of the deck. Like, first of all, I want to have my 1-drops in it. So Ice Witch is here, very much like in your Silver Quill build.
Yeah.
As a 1/1 that when it dies, it can get me a card. And I want it to die also. Unwilling Ingredients, also 2 of those because I want them to die. And why do I want them to die? Is mainly I want to play turn 2 Biograph, and that's the first plan of this deck. I want to drop it 1-drop, and on turn 2 I want to play a 5/4. And if an opponent does not have a good way of dealing with it quickly, I'm going to annihilate them with it. And the rest of the deck is sort of tries to build around making sure that this early drop goes through quite well. So basically, I have eliminate Slunk as cheap removal, Umbral Juke as something that can force them to sacrifice a creature when they finally got to double block my graph. I can play it in combat and make them sacrifice one of the blockers and kill the other one, and they will have a hard time recovering from that. And so that's one of the plans of the deck. And of course, because of the limitations of the skeletons, I could only put 2 Biographs and 2 Unwilling Ingredients. But I think that in successful versions that I can draft in real world, I want to probably have 4 Biographs and like 5 1-drops to make them stronger. And the second plan of the deck is playing either Demagogue Titan or Demagogue Woe Eater. So one of them is a 4-mana 7/6, and the other one is a 4-mana 11/10. I think that's not an accident that they don't have the attack equal to toughness.
Yeah, then the uncommon would give them trample, right?
Exactly. I think that's basically the insurance policy against that. Yeah. That's why I put 1 charge in this deck, because 1 charge can do quite a lot of damage if you play it on the Demagogue Titan. Now, of course, these creatures are way too good power toughness to be without any drawback. So Demagogue Woe Eater requires you to sacrifice a creature every turn, and when you sacrifice it, you also draw a card, each opponent discards a card, and you gain 2 life, which is not so important in this particular deck, but can be important. While the 10/11, it cannot attack or block unless you sacrifice a creature.
Right.
So both of those can be tricky if you don't have a board presence. If I don't draw my Biographs, I can definitely use my Ice Witches and Unwilling Ingredients also as a fodder to those, and I get the same bonuses from them. I learned from Ice Witch, and I can get a card later from the Unwilling Ingredient. If I don't have fuel for that, Demagogue Titan will be just a useless thing on the board, and Demagogue Woe Eater will have to be sacrificed to itself, basically. That's why I also have 10 the Pests in this deck. So it serves twofold. 1, I can sacrifice my Demagogue Titan and get 11 Pests, which is probably good enough to finish the game at some stage. If I see that I won't have enough fodder for the Demogorgon Titan to attack successfully. I just change it into 11/1/1s that ping on the death as well, and then attack with 7 leave 4 to blocks and see what the opponents can do with it. But at the same time, if I have a Bayou Groff that cannot attack anymore because there is bigger things on board that it won't go through, I can change Bayou Groff into 5 1/1 pests that I can sacrifice to the Titan or to the Woe Eater to enable them paying their upkeep costs or paying their attack block costs, basically. So that's the sort of like a micro combos inside of there. Yep. I think that 10 to pest is going to be a card that is probably only good with the with those particular 2 cards. Like, it's also worth noting that because Demogorgon Woe Eater has its trigger on when it becomes sacrificed, you still get the effect of forcing opponents to discard, drawing a card, and gaining 2 life when you play 10 defense on it.
Yeah, I think attacking with the Woe Eater, dealing 7, end step, you sack it, so that you don't have to sack it on the upkeep. I think that's insanely strong. And I think if you deal 7 with the Woe Eater and then make 7 1/1s that drain them for 1, I mean that's 14 in total, right? You don't need.
Yeah, that's a good pattern, yeah.
You don't need a lot on top of that to kill them, actually. So.
Oh, but you have a Dina and maybe something else. You can start sacrificing your pets and draining them.
You'll get
there. But I mean, it's a relatively simple deck in terms of what it does. But you will notice that there is not an amazing amount of overlap. And I put like a couple of Arrogant Poets in it rather than the lifelink creatures, because I thought this might be a deck that has a problem of dealing this last couple of damage, but it will probably never be starved for life because of the amount of life gain from pets you will get and the speed that you will attack your opponent. You should have enough mana to life to basically give them flying every turn, and then they can actually go through their defenses relatively easily. Yep. And yeah, one card from the archive I put was the Harmonize. I think that this deck can use some card draw as well. So this would be a rare that I would like to see from my mystical archive. And obviously 2 Professors of Zoomancy, but I think that most green decks should have 2 of those.
Yeah. I think if you end up with both the doesn't need to be both, right? If you end up with a Woe Eater, like, are there any sacrifice, any graveyard return effects we can leverage to?
But that's the thing. I don't think that there is many.
There isn't, right?
Yeah, no, that's the problem of this format that I have. It's just that there is no Soul Reef.
And this deck would love it, right? If there is
this deck would absolutely love
it. If there is a deck that would love a graveyard recursion card, it's this one to get back to Woe Eater, because I think
that's why I put the card draw effect, because that's the only thing. If you cannot return your stuff from the grave, you have to rely on drawing things.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sure, for sure. Okay, awesome. Umbral Juke is the instant speed 2/1 Inkling, by the way, that I meant.
That's the one.
That was where I was.
This card I think is great.
Yeah, it's these.
They put an instant 2/1 with flying, which is great, and the sacrifice is good when it's good. So
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay.
It's also like just one thing I found interesting
is
all your free draw slot is basically lessons.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good one. So this is
But I mean, all my learn spells are 2 mana.
Yeah. That's so. When I was building the skeleton for Witherbloom, at first I was like, the 3-drops suck, right? You have this 3/2 deer that gains you 2 life, and what other 3-drop was there that was very mediocre? I forget about it. But then I saw the gold card, right? The 2/2 menace that gets a +1. I was like, so that's the 3-drop you're playing 4 of. And then it all resolves itself. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Okay. Okay. I think we talked enough Witherbloom, right? We can have a quick look at the standout cards, and then we'll on to the next one. You guys agree?
Yep.
So I think most of the standout cards we already covered, right? I think Professor of Zoomancy, we can highlight that one again. I mean, 4 mana, 4/3, that makes a 1/1. I think that's just a very good rate. I mean, last set we had a 3/2 that did this effect, but the 1/1 didn't gain you alive, or didn't gain you alive.
Yeah, no, that's what I heard in the discussion when I mentioned. Well, that's basically Elder Leaf Mentor, but with
right.
as a fourth weapon, the 3/2. That's it. But the Elder Leaf Mentor has types. And then, well, Pest has types. Pest is a good type for this particular deck.
It is.
Because the life gain effect, don't ignore it. I mean, it's going to, hopefully, if you make your deck right, it's going to do more than it actually. Oh, that's an interesting question from Lapido.
Yeah, I know my answer. I'm going for the Mad Magician, but hey. Quick.
I'm not sure yet.
Quick note. I mean. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just. So I mean, yes. In vacuum, I'm more for the Mathematician. But are we going biomathematician? Yeah. Some of my good friends are biomathematicians. I collaborate a lot with biomathematicians. They will be very pleased to have a card named after them. Also, ironically, I call all my biomathematician friends mathematicians. They always get annoyed by that. So yeah. But I think that because it's a 3-drop, it's a better card. I just think that it's instantly more appealing to people, which means the dream of drafting 5 of them is not going to be a very realistic one.
No, probably not. But I think I'm picking this card very highly. So like how high I'm picking this card, I'm expecting to be able to pick up like 2 or 3. Like I don't think that is unrealistic if you're taking this as like a B.
Yeah. But I also think that Professor of Zoomancy is going to be good in any kind of green combination. So the flexibility is quite important there.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say, right? The Elderleaf Mentor, it was good in elves and not really outside of that. And I think the extra 1/1 on the Professor, plus the fact that it creates a pest, makes it card playable in basically any green deck, I would say.
Yeah.
I think you happily main deck those. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, just maybe as a conclusion, I'm way more excited about Witherbloom than I was of any previously discussed archetypes.
Okay.
Way more.
That's note. And I
think it's supported. That's the thing. I think that it's easily supported, and you can always squeeze something out of it.
Oh. Fair point.